What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. We got Tim rolling in here. Tim, you can keep the camera off if you're still in bed, bub. It's all good, man.
I'm doing great.
I'll tell you, man. I got up this morning. I rolled over and slept in just a touch and was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I talked myself into it, so here we are, man. I know we got some other wild people here in the chat. We got Greg in the house. We got Chris Nye. We got Doug Pointer, Chris N. A lot of Chris's in the house this morning. M. Smitty, good morning, buddy. Good morning, Dead Fish. Everybody in here, man. Look at this. We got our boy Chris in here talking about the diesel already. He said that diesel tasting good this morning.
I need it, Clayton. I'm over here like.
Good morning.
A little bit easier to sleep in on a Saturday on Easter weekend, man. That's for sure, dude. We got the birds chirping outside. You get that temperature just right in the bed. You don't want to roll. I mean, it's rough. We're expecting some beautiful weather today. So as soon as we wrap this pod up, I'm going to get out here on the property a little bit and got some chainsaw therapy to dive into and a couple other things. So I'm excited about it, man. Deadfish said he's a little behind schedule. Diesel's still brewing for him. So there you go. We may keep this kind of short, around the 30 to 40 minute mark. We'll see how it goes. If we get rolling, we'll keep on rolling. But Tim, I'm kind of in that mode right now where I'm trying to kind of fine tune the draft board, but I'm also it seems like every year I miss a few prospects where they would have made it on my top 150 if I'd have been a little more diligent on the front side and trying to comb through some of those quote unquote later round guys, right? And that's how your Zach Toms and those kind of slip through the cracks, if you will. So I've been trying to comb through some of the lesser known names and using, people's information that knows what the heck they're doing, and found a couple. And that's kind of where I'm at in the draft process right now. I know we got Jacob in here in Rumble. Good to see you, buddy. Said, morning, boys from Rumble. I'm hopping on in a minute once I wake up. Everybody on the same page here this morning, Tim. I believe if I had pushed it back 30 minutes, we'd all been on time.
Maybe. You never know.
Yeah. I looked up at that timer and I was like, oh, man. I'm thinking about just editing it, Let's just tack on 15 minutes. Said, what the heck? Let's do it. Let's hit the live button. So good morning, Andre. It's good to see you, buddy. So one of the people that I like to follow closely, and you guys know this, is Daniel Jeremiah. I always get tickled at the people that kind of beat his opinion down, as if they know more than a former pro scout, but that's a topic for another day. I love how he's starting to kind of take you in the mind of an NFL scout, and it's cool to see their mind fire kind of in a way that ours do, like one thing I try to look for in any kind of evaluation, or like when we're doing draft talk, or even if you're breaking down the tape too, you're trying to determine what makes, this receiver so good, because you can see some of the fastest guys that come into the league, like Ross, right? Last year, who was it that was fairly quick, but he was kind of one of the highly touted ones, Jackson Smith-Njigba, right? Everybody was crazy about him and the Packers should take him. And obviously he hasn't kind of performed up to the level you would expect someone taken in the first half of the first round, at least in my opinion. But you try to look for those commonalities. And I love that that's how Daniel Jeremiah's mind fires too. Like one of the things he tweeted out was there are certain buzzwords that are good indicators for success at different positions. When I go back and self-scout the cornerback position, and what does he mean by self-scout the cornerback position? He goes back over his notes from previous drafts and goes, man, this guy ended up being good, but I had him a little bit lower on my board. This guy ended up being good, but I had him a little lower on my board. What's the commonalities between the two, right? What do they have in common? And he's finding these buzzwords that he's putting in his scouting report. Now, I'm sure there's buzzwords used for different types of scouts and whatnot, but for the most part, the language is pretty universal, right? So here are a couple of the buzzwords in his notes that stood out on players that ended up being good. He went on with the tweet and said, when I go back and self-scout the cornerback position, feisty, competitive, energetic are words that show up a bunch for guys that end up being good pros. I love that he's willing to lower the ego and self-scout, first of all, go back and critique himself and try to get a little bit better. And here's a guy that's obviously at the top of his craft, being on NFL Network as the top NFL draft analyst.
Here's the guy.
Yeah, here's a guy. It just shows you, Tim, that people that are good at their craft, man, they're always willing to try to find another level. They're always willing to, okay, let me go self-evaluate and say, how can I get a little bit better at what I'm trying to accomplish? Man, it goes for athletes, it goes for execs, and it even goes for, in the football TV business, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. It's part of being a professional, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a pro, you approach it like a pro.
Definitely.
He's like the Daniel Jeremiah is like the Tay Wicks of analysts, right? Yeah. Just always getting better.
Yeah. And you never hear those guys, at least like the Daniel Jeremiahs, the Bucky Brooks, you never hear them say, "I told you so." You never see them tweet something out that goes, "Yeah, I told y'all about this months ago." Like, there's never any of that. They're already beyond that. The grade's done, the evaluation's done. I'm on to something new and trying to get better as an evaluator. I love and respect that about him, man. Speaking of love and respect, I want to give a shout out to Omer that I think he tagged me in this yesterday. Pretty funny, right? Since it's Easter weekend. It says
we're going to hell, Clayton.
At Hool TRAS 1944. Speaking of not taking yourself too serious, I should say. Let's start it with that way. It says we're so close to the NFL draft, and of course it shows. It looks like a Catholic priest here holding up the NFL football.
That's the Pope, but that looks like the Pope.
Is that the Pope?
I think that's the Pope.
Obviously, I'm not Catholic, not trying to dog it, but it is cool to sit down with other people who are Catholic and just sit down and let them talk. And I'm going, man, we were brought up totally different, right? When you hear about the custom. And one thing that I love about Green Bay, Wisconsin, my first experience in Green Bay, going and watching them play the Bears back in, what was it, 2003, I'm almost positive. We pulled up and we ended up parking in someone's yard. And as we were walking down the street, we seen people going into what I'm almost positive was a Catholic church. And it sounds like there are a lot of Catholics in Green Bay. Am I thinking right?
Yes,
Tim? Yeah,
absolutely.
There were people walking into the Catholic church with jerseys on and stuff. I was going, is this normal? Like, this is, because down here in the South, in the Bible Belt that you put on your tie,
and your Sunday best on. Yeah.
These cats were going in for, I guess, an early mass and then trying to get to the game. I just absolutely loved it, man. It's just everything about that city, everything about that town revolved around the Packers, which is really cool.
So, yeah, there's one thing Milwaukee and Green Bay have in common. It's there's a church or a bar on every corner. That's true in both of those markets for sure.
I love the old Bart Starr story too, talking about Vince Lombardi. He said that it was who was it? It was Bill Curry, the old Kentucky football coach. By the way, not a good Kentucky football coach. Let's just say that. You mentioned Bill Curry in the state of Kentucky and people cringe. You mention him outside of Kentucky and more specifically in Wisconsin, they love him, right? And same thing, with the I guess in the Baltimore area, which they're kind of bitter about the Colts leaving, but he played for the Colts for a long time too. But he said, I remember getting to Green Bay and just seeing Lombardi and I heard that he goes to church. And he said, I went to Bart Starr and I said, Bart, it can't be true, right? Coach goes to church, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he goes to mass every day." Bill, what you're gonna learn being around this guy on a daily basis, this man needs to go to church. Just talking about how fierce he was. I love that story.
They're actually almost done with the restoration of Lombardi's old church here in Green Bay too. They had some ceiling issues and things going on inside the church, so they're in the process right now of bringing it back.
One of the houses that we looked at to rent for the draft, which we got our spot locked down, one of the places we looked at was really close to Lombardi's home, which was kind of cool. I can only imagine how much traffic that house gets, people wanting to ride by and look at it. So obviously we're not going to mention the exact address. If you really wanted to find it, you could, but it was just cool going, man, a couple blocks from Lombardi's home would be neat, but
what's so cool is if you ever make that trip and check it out, you can literally see Lambeau Field basically from the yard kind of area.
Really?
It's really close. There's a little park right across the street, and you can see over the river, and you can see Lambeau in the background. It's awesome. That
is awesome because it's like a half circle that goes almost up to the water, and he's just sitting horizontally, or his former house was sitting there. So, I love it, man. Green Bay, there's history everywhere. for sure. Let's see. Back to Daniel Jeremiah here. Omer got us off topic there. Tim's gonna pray for me tonight with the Pope pick there. But let's see. Let's go ahead and get that out of the database so we don't get that again. Daniel Jeremiah said, when you start stacking players deep into the draft, you realize there isn't much difference between the 35th guy and the 60th guy. All about flavor / preference. Okay. Now, what's he mean there? What he means there when it comes to, how they stack up similarly. If you look at the draft board, you got to kind of look at, how the grades hit, right? I was going to share the consensus big board. We'll get back to that in a minute. Let me go ahead and share the 33rd team, and let's see if it lines up with what Daniel Jeremiah is saying here. Because sometimes drafts are top heavy, like it's pretty balanced at the top, and then there's a big drop off. Other times it's quite the opposite. Now it's going to be hard to get this entire draft board on here. Let's see if we can make this happen here, Tim, as we let's drop that down for just a second. He said what, the 35th, didn't he? Starting at the 35th spot, 35 through 60. So let's see if we can make this somewhat doable here. Now, obviously the safeties are going to be cut off just a bit. I'm going to go full screen here. So if you look at the top tier here, according to the 33rd team, right, you've only got 4 players in the top tier. You see Caleb Williams at quarterback, right? You've got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. You've got Joe Alt at tackle. Then when you get to the 6.9 range, right, so now you're, 6 prospects in, you've got wide receiver Rome Odunze and tackle J.C. Latham. And again, this is according to the 33rd team. It doesn't mean that theirs is more accurate than anyone else. It's just a resource we like to use, right?
Who in the hell is Mel Kiper, in a way?
You will never see me share Mel Kiper's big board, I promise you. 6.8, if we go down another tier. Now, keep in mind, if you look at the grades on the left, that's just simply separating them in the current tier. So, like, if a team were to pick, with all 4 of those guys in the top tier on the board, that's where you'll go, okay, these guys are so close in overall grade. We're willing to go ahead and take a position of need, right? What you want is the horizontal board to vertically line up with your needs. And if it doesn't, that's when you get into situations where teams will trade back. That, or like last year when Goody absolutely loved Jaden Reed and he knew no one was on him, then he was willing to trade back a touch, right? And not necessarily go to take him right then. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about not reaching in the draft. So if we climb down another tier, you've got in the 6.8 tier, you've got Drake May at quarterback. You've got Brock Bowers. You got Fashanu at tackle, edge defender Dallas Turner and Latu, and then you got cornerbacks Kool-Aid McKinstry and Nate Wiggins in that tier. Now you hop down. So in that tier there, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you see there's more players in that 6.8 tier than there is in the top tier of 7+, where there was 4, and there's only 2 in the 6.9 range. So as you get into different tiers, what he's talking about is once you get past 35, I guarantee you what he's talking about, Tim, is that 6.5 range. You see this range right here?
Yep.
Like, there is a ton of prospects there that are all graded out very, very similarly. Now, the 33rd team does a good job utilizing the horizontal board and really specifying like, hey, yeah, Benson, Estime, Brooks, Shipley, and Corum are all in the same tier, but Benson's better than Estime. Then you underneath Estime, you got Brooks, then you got Shipley, then you got Corum. But it all comes down to preference too. So if you get into this situation, you may have a higher grade on Trey Benson, but you want to run, like say a gap scheme that Jonathan Brooks fits. And I'm just throwing that out there. He may be more of a zone runner. You would look up and go, the grade's close enough. He's a better fit for our scheme. Let's take him over him. Or you may get into this situation where you like Estime, Brooks, and Shipley, and a lot of people are going to like Benson. Let's trade back 5 picks because one of those 3 guys are still going to be there, and they still sit in that current tier. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's the importance of the horizontal board. And I understand that a large majority of our listeners probably understand that. But anytime there may be 1 or 2 that doesn't understand something, we're going to try to hit on it because that's the whole purpose of the channel is for us to kind of grow and learn together. So I think that's probably what he's talking about is you get down to the 6.5 and the 6.4 range. There's a ton of prospects and there's not a whole lot of difference there. Right.
That 6.5 range, not to be confused with
65%.
65%. That's what exactly correct, Mark. We got Jacob in here now. Jacob, you finally rolled out of bed, big dog.
Oh man, I'm hurting, Linda. It was a rough night.
Bad.
I went to bed way too late to be up this early. So
yeah, we need to get that. We need to get that sound drop for sure. We need the "I'm hurting, Linda. I'm hurting real bad" from Sling Blade. For those of you who don't know, God, man, what a great movie. I never want to watch it again, but I remember watching it the first time, being blown away.
I never want to watch it again.
It's a good movie, but I don't want to watch it again.
It's so good.
All right, so what I did here was put up the grading scale just to kind of give you guys an idea. If this is the first time you've seen a horizontal board, specifically with the 33rd team, they set theirs up like pro teams do, right? You've got these grades. Now, you'll hear people like Michael Lombardi and other scouts say, yeah, I had a 67 on him, or I had a 64 on him. They're referring to the 6.4 or the 6.7. It's just easier to say 67 instead of 6.7, right? So the 6.5 range, let's say the 6.6 and the 6.5 and the 6.4 range, right? What does that mean? The 6.5 to the 6.6 range is a lower end starter, right? The 6.2 to the 6.4 is a limited starter or a multi-position backup. Okay, so you can kind of see when you look at how the board sits, nothing's a slam dunk, right? There can be busts anywhere. But anytime you get a 7 or higher, you're expecting an immediate starter with all pro potential, right? You got 4 players that meet that category or meet that criteria according to the 33rd team in this year's draft. That's quarterback Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Joe Alt. Now let's take it a step further here. If we click on Marvin Harrison Jr., notice his grade says 7.2, right? That's a max grade to the best of my knowledge. If you go to Caleb Williams, it's only a 7.0. So they've actually got Marvin Harrison Jr., even though they're in the same tier, he's slightly better than Caleb Williams as an overall grade. You've got Joe Alt at a 7.0, so he is the same grade as a Caleb Williams, right? And then if you go to Malik Neighbors, they've got Malik Neighbors at a 7.0. So if you wanted to really take this board a little bit further and break the 7 away and put a 7.2 at the top, Marvin Harrison Jr. would be in a tier all by himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, he might be the most talented player in the draft, period.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Marvin Harrison Jr. pretty much is in a tier by himself.
Right.
Do you guys think that's kind of crazy that quote unquote the most talented player could possibly fall to 4 or 5 in this draft?
It's wild, man.
I think it's just the indication of the quarterback heavy part of the draft, right? And these teams that are going to probably take quarterbacks early.
Someone said yesterday, Jacob, on a mock draft, I was listening to a mock draft show. It might have been with Fox Sports maybe, but they said, everybody's talking about these teams trading up to get a quarterback. Don't be surprised if a team that doesn't need a quarterback trades up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Because as it sits right now, everyone is expecting, I believe it's Arizona at number 4. Wherever Arizona is, they're expecting them to kind of be the front runner for Marvin Harrison Jr. So it might be a situation where the Patriots, who I believe are at 3, could trade down, and they'll be trading down with the team that wants to leapfrog Arizona to get Marvin Harrison Jr. So that's another. I'm telling you, man, this time of the year, if you know what to look for and you know what to dig into, there's a lot of good information coming out. If you really key in on who you're listening to, and I'm not talking about PTA, I'm talking about the guys and gals that know what the heck they're talking about.
Like Mel Kiper?
No, not Mel Kiper there, Beard.
Oh.
He's been doing it a long time. I dog him, I'm tongue in cheek when I'm dogging him like this, right? I'm not saying Mel Kiper, is just an absolute bum or anything. I'm just saying he's never been in a draft room. He's never, experienced what it's like to work a horizontal board, to be on the phones, working the trades, all that stuff. That's why I tend to lean towards, those who have been within the organization actually kind of going about it. I always loved Mike Mayock. Mike Mayock was hands down the best draft analyst I've ever experienced. I was hoping once he got fired from the Vegas Raiders that he would come back to the NFL Network. But I'm sure they're looking at it too. Like DJ does a phenomenal job, Daniel Jeremiah. So Doug in the chat says, I got a weird feeling Goody is going to trade up to go for Alt. Hey, I'm going to tell you this right now. If he trades up for Joe Alt from Notre Dame, I'm going to be absolutely fired up. I'm team trade back every year, right? But this is what I'm talking about. If a player somehow falls within striking range that you're willing to trade up, let's say we get to the 20 mark, and I'm not saying Joe Walt's going to be there at 20. Let's make it a little more realistic. Let's say it's 15. I don't think he's going to make it out of the top. Definitely not the top 10. Probably not even the top 5. To be honest with you, it's that important a position, and he's that good of a prospect. But let's say you get to pick 15, and Joe Walt has fallen all the way to 15. Right? That's where if Goody's board looks like this, he's going to look up. And let's say all the 6.8s are gone, all the 6.9s are gone, all the 7s are gone except for Joe Walt. In their opinion, if their board looks like this, they've got the opportunity to trade up, right? To trade up to 15, 10 spots to get the best player in the draft according to their horizontal board. That's how those trade ups tend to happen. Now, let's try to talk about a little bit about Jordan Love. When Jordan Love, they traded up to get Jordan Love. Do you guys remember? I'm trying to remember exactly how many picks did they trade up to? How many spots did they move up to get Jordan Love? Do you remember that, Jacob, by chance?
Oh gosh,
I can't remember.
I think it was pretty considerable. I think it was about 10 or 12 picks, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it really? Wow. I was going to guess like maybe 2 or 3, but I could be way off. Again, I'm just scattershotted there. But to give you an example of that, you see these grades on these players, right? One thing that Greg Cosell talks about with quarterbacks, and I say it all the time, and I'm going to try to stop saying it because I say it all the time, but it's really important. It's why I put the tweet out about the quarterback position and what Minnesota may or may not do, because it's going to control the whole draft process. You always treat quarterbacks one tier higher than their actual grade, meaning you're willing to reach on them just a touch because it's that important of a position. Greg Cosell says there's 2 drafts every spring. There's an NFL draft and there's an NFL quarterback draft. So let's say that they had a 6.8 on Jordan Love, they being the Packers, right? And they get to the point where just remove Drake May, replace Drake May with Jordan Love's name here, right? All the other quarterbacks were taken, right? And the next one's going to be Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy. Let's say that you had a second-round grade on them or what have you. And Jordan Love's sitting there, and you get within striking range, you go, look, it's too important of a position, right? He's dropped. We're getting the second best quarterback in the draft. We've got a high-end grade on him being a 6.8. We're saying that he's a strong starter, right? Which they were probably looking at it more like a lower-end starter, I would imagine. And when you look at it like that, you go, okay, Aaron Rodgers getting a little longer in the tooth. This is the best player available on the board. Let's see if we can climb up and grab him. I personally believe they had someone else on the radar at the time, and they had already worked out a trade with the team that they moved up with. You already got that, those trades are already being put in place right now as we speak. That way, when you get the draft night, you can, just kind of pull the trigger, call them up. Hey, you still good for that trade? All right, let's make the move. And I guarantee you that they were expecting another player to fall, but it just so happened that Jordan Love fell. And they're like, this is even better than the player we had. Like, let's say that they were going to trade up to get someone like Bowers and, again, replace Drake May with Jordan Love in this scenario to 6.8. Let's say Bowers and May, right, were the best 2 available. And then the team that they were going to trade with, one or 2 picks before the team that they were going to trade with drafts, right, and Bowers flies off the board. And now you've just got Drake May left. And they're thinking, we really wanted Bowers. Let's trade up and get May / Jordan Love at the time, right? That's how the horizontal board kind of works with people.
You were right, Clayton. I was totally wrong.
Okay, so Ron Samble. Man, I tell you, our chat is awesome. Ron Samble said they moved up 4 spots for those of you on the pod. I was thinking it was just 2, so I was wrong too, Jake. So, 4 spots. So I think they traded a 4th. Yeah, here we go. Andres in the chat. They traded with Miami a 30th and a 4th round pick for the 26th pick. So they moved up 4 spots and they gave up a 4th round pick to do it. So there you go. Good stuff. Appreciate the chat filling in there. We got like I don't know. It's pretty cool. We got our own AI search engine here when we're live. We
got our own Jamie. We got our own Joe Rogan Jamie.
We do got our own Jamie. Get that right. So, all right. Now back to what we were even going to talk about. That was pretty cool that we got off on that little tangent though. I just wanted to kind of highlight that what he said, not much difference between the 35th guy and the 60th guy, and kind of draw that parallel on the 33rd team. That would be the equivalent to like the 6.6 to 6.5 range, maybe even the 6.4 range, where you get in that position and you've got 15 guys to choose from, then guess what you do? You trade back, 5, 7 spots. You're still going to get a guy in your current top tier of talent. You might even be able to get multiples. But it was really cool hearing Goody talk this offseason about how they're pretty confident, and on a consistent basis, they get players in their top 50 within the first 3 rounds. That's just wild to me, man. And if I were to drop this 33rd team down again and pull up my horizontal board, or my vertical board rather, my horizontal board won't be ready until about a week before draft. If I were to pop this up here, bang, and we'll see if we can get it zoomed in enough to make it easier to read. I think I did something before like that. There we go. That's a little bit. All right. So if you're talking about Goody can get someone in their top 50 within the first 3 rounds, look at some of these namers. Let's just kind of go down and start with the 50th spot. You could get Junior Colson, Amagaji, Cade Stover, tight end from Ohio, Leonard Taylor from Miami, defensive lineman, Darius Robinson. I think I got it sorted right. I do. Yep. Darius Robinson, edge from Missouri, Gabriel Murphy, Audric Estime, running back from Notre Dame, Bo Limmer from Arkansas, Trey Benson, halfback from Florida State, Blake Corum. Blake Corum is officially back in front of Trey Benson on my board. It's neck and neck the whole way. Well, actually, no, that's not accurate. If you see this column right here, that's the most recent finished product. Okay. This is going to be the next step, but the information isn't in yet. If you look right here, Trey Benson is a 47.5 and Blake Corum's a 51.5. So this will adjust slightly. And the final grade will end up being over here. But Bo Limmer, Trey Benson from Florida State, Blake Corum from Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, which is probably not going to go for one in the first 3 rounds. I don't think they will. Chris Jenkins, one of my draft crushes, defensive lineman from Michigan. You got Bo Nix, quarterback from Oregon, Cooper Beebe, guard from Kansas State, Jordan Morgan from Arizona, center Zach Frazier from West Virginia. So you're hearing all these names, and the thought that you could get 3 players in our case, we've got 4 players in the top 50, I think. Is that right? As far as the draft picks go? Let me pull that up real quick. I don't want to tell y'all wrong here. I know I've got the draft picks. So we got 2 in the top 50, right? Yeah. As far as picks, but we've got 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. So that would suggest you can get 5 players in your top 50 if Goody was being honest about what he said there. So I think it's just cool when you look at some of those names, and to think that we could get 5 names here, Tim, out of this top 50 list, dude. That gets me really excited. Really excited.
Oh yeah. 5 picks in the top 100, man. Goody's going to cook. If he goes straight up, he's going to cook. If he trades back, he's going to cook. If he trades up, he's going to cook. Yeah. And you know what happens after we cook? We eat. So get ready.
Yeah, we got to get that sound drop.
Did you guys listen by chance to one of the recent? It was the Packer calling the. What the heck? Why can't I think of the name? The
Packernet After Dark with
After
Ryan
Dark. Schwartz. Yeah. When they called in, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was talking about how Goody has kind of crushed the last. Well, what he did is he looked back at like multiple drafts, how even back to like Ron Wolf to Ted Thompson, how they seem to kind of get in a groove, and they'd have 2 or 3 really great draft classes back to back to back kind of thing. And he said, like, do you think Goody could do it this year and have a back to back great draft? And then he called back after the next call and said, hey, wait a minute, I just realized that Goody's already had a great 2020 or 2022 draft, a great 2023 draft. So now he's going for the 3-peat basically now. And he went off and listed all the guys that are, quote unquote starters / even Pro Bowler type stuff. So do you think that with this many picks, with 5 in the top 100, that Goody is going to, again, like Tim just said, he going to cook and then he going to eat? I mean,
bro, he's got a ton of draft capital. I mean, it's just.
But it is, though, it's that spot. And they talked about how, like, Brett Favre had a certain window. Aaron Rodgers had a certain window. And a lot of that led from the draft picks that they had in congruent years. So are we setting ourselves up, in my opinion, I'm going to say yeah, but are we setting ourselves up to have one of the best 2 or 3 years with how deep our wide receiver room is, how deep the O-line could be after this draft, how deep the running back room could be, how deep the defense in general, if we address certain needs, could be? Are we setting ourselves up for a good 2 to 3 year chunk where we are legitimate top 5 teams? I think we are, which is
there we go.
I mean, last year I think it's very, very reasonable to say that we were a top 5 team in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, they were playing that well. If you look at how they just absolutely dismantled Dallas, right? I think it's not unrealistic to say we were a top 5 team at the end of the year. Now, obviously, other teams are going to have the whole off season to watch the tape. They're going to be able to adjust schematically, and it's going to come down to how quick LaFleur adjusts and how well Jordan Love plays, seeing that there's pretty much a whole season of tape on him now, and they're going to see little tendencies. They're going to know that he doesn't necessarily start with the boundary safety and reading things out and working his way to the Sam. So they may try to throw a couple wrinkles in there, like just little things that they can pick up on. Judging by the progressions, right? You're going to go off of the route concepts, right? The route combinations, the passing concepts, and go, okay, they like to run these 3 or these 5 concepts the most. Here's the defense that's going to shut that down the best, right? But not only that, we're going to give a disguise within the look to force Jordan to start his read right into the teeth of the defense. I won't go into all the details of what I mean there, but I'm just saying, like, that's how defensive coordinators think in the offseason. They're constantly looking to they're going to go watch all the tape. Okay, here's how we stop this guy, right? Specifically those within the division. If we come out and adjust, and everything that you just said, Jacob, about how they've knocked the last 2 drafts out of the freaking park, the one before that was hideous. Like, we got to be real.
Yeah.
But these last 2, man, holy cow. If you continue to load the roster down with young talent that's going to create competition, and you throw those low cap hits in like we talked about the other day, kind of just giving you an example here what the cap hits look like. Lucas Van Ness is at 3.9, the Quay Walker's at 3.7, the Devontae Wyatt's at 3.5, Christian Watson 2.5. One that really pops out, a couple of them. Jaden Reed 1.6, right? Talking about 1.6 million against the cap next year. Romeo Dobbs 1.1. Think about how he performed in the playoffs.
Zach Tom too. Zach Tom's 1.1.
Yeah, Zach Tom at the bottom of the list there, 1.1 million. Right. If you add in, let's say, out of these draft picks that we're talking about, which we got 11 draft picks, we got the 25th, 41st, 58th, 88th, 91st, 127, 168, 204, 219, 243, 255. If you hit on 5 of those, right? If you hit on 5 of them and by year 2 they're starters, you're just going to roll right into a new set of starters that will hopefully increase your chances of winning ball games and still continue to lower the cap. This is how you're able to pay Jordan Love top 5, top 10 quarterback money, right? And again, when you play cash over cap, which we're not necessarily doing right now, if a window opens, you may see Goody start using more voidable years again to create cap space now to just continue to add to the roster. But if you build through the draft like this and you hit on 5 or 6 prospects, man, it's freaking game on. And some people are going, I don't think they've hit on that many. Guys, last year alone, look at this. This is last year's draft class, right? And you can see the RASs are in the green on the right, and there's a couple that are in the yellow. It just so happens that the 2 in the yellow were 2 of our best rookies, which is absolutely awesome too. But anybody who grades out above 60, according to PFF, typically turn out to be pretty good pros, right? From this rookie class last year, you have Van Ness with a 62.3 PFF grade in the NFL. These are the NFL PFF grades. Luke Musgrave, 68.1. Jaden Reed, 73.3. Tucker Kraft, 60.4. Dontavian Wicks, 77.8. Carl Brooks, 69.3. So last year they took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 draft picks. So we've got 1 less draft pick this year than we had last year, right? Actually, is there another guy under there in that
13.
band? Yeah, 13. Okay, so we took 13. Out of 13 picks, I feel really comfortable saying we hit on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So basically half the class. So if we hit on 5 to 6 prospects, hell, if we hit on 4 this year out of that 11, Jacob, you're spot on, dude. We're going to be set up for the future big time, man. You're absolutely. It's going to be huge. Yes. So. Thank you. Thank you, audience. I appreciate it. All right. So we kind of hit on that and what DJ was talking about with the 35 through 60, right? And how the talent isn't that big of a difference. It all comes down to fit schematically, what you're looking for in the player as a person, that type of thing. Here's some of DJ's sleepers. I thought this was really cool. He said, some of my favorite players outside of the top 50. All right. At the top of the list, we got cornerback Max Melton from Rutgers, right? Obviously, many people are a lot higher on him than I am. On my board, Max Melton, if I remember correctly. Let me find him here real quick. Max Melton.
You had him at like 150 or something.
Yeah, he's way down the list for me. Let me see here. And again, I know I'm going to catch hate for this because it's Bo's brother. I get it. I think he was actually was he a little lower? No. Let me see here. Why can't I find it, man? Of course, the board is constantly getting adjusted. So right when I get used to them being in a spot, they jump around. I'll see if I can find them here in a second. I may be able to zoom in and get a little bit better grab on it. But
I keep taking Max at 91 in my mocks. All
Do
the
you?
time. That
Wait a minute, though. Is
Rasul
that-
Douglas pick.
I got to say that's the Douglas pick. Okay.
You got to replace Rasul Douglas with Max Melton. It's the only thing. It would make everything right in the world.
I don't think that Jeremiah has these in any sort of order because, well, I shouldn't say that, but is
I
that
don't think he
Malik
does.
Washington that he has listed there as the receiver?
Let's see. I believe it may be. Yeah, wide receiver from Virginia. We'll look these guys
Yeah.
up.
A lot of these guys are on my list as well. We've talked about Kamara. He's a little bit undersized. He's like 6'1" or whatever, but he is just a beast on the edge. Lloyd, the running back from USC, is a really popular pick that people have really been kind of getting high on because he's kind of that prototypical, like he is just a really, really good running back. And then I believe I can't remember if it's Taylor McLaughlin or Tyler, but that's a big body tight end out of Arizona there. That's one of that you can get in the 6th and 7th round. That could be that to me looks like a really good Packers late round pick, especially now that DeGuara is gone. Which, by the way, I was going to wear my DeGuara jersey today, but the cat already tore it off the wall. So
The cat tried to tell you, bro. The cat
tried to tell me, dude.
the whole time. So I have Max Melton in the 175 spot right now. When the board adjusts, it looks like he's probably going to fall somewhere around 170. All right, now let's drop this down real quick. And again, yeah, there you go, SDM 40. I've seen Max Melton mocked in the second lately. What's that mean?
I have no
FWI.
idea.
For what it's worth.
Oh, wow,
Oh, for-
Tim with the
I think you guys, y'all are tied in with the streets. I don't know what half these guys know. So let's see where Max Melton sits according to the consensus big board. Currently, Max Melton he's at the 68 spot. He peaked at 54 and he's at 68. So sounds like he's dropped a little bit here recently, would be my guess, but still solid spot, way higher, over 100 spots higher than I've got him on my board. Now, people are going, why do you have him so low, Clayton? PFF, he was the 385th graded cornerback of 2022, okay? And then when I took my information in, he was 283 for 2023 on the big board, if I remember correctly. He landed on the consensus big board at 88 when I took the data down. And then the 33rd team had him at 131. So that's how I come out to the number I did. He got a little bit of a bonus. Obviously, had a great RAS, a great combine athletic score, all that stuff. But the thing that when I look at Max Melton and I'm a little bit hesitant on is he didn't play that well in 2022. He wasn't that highly sought after in 2023 when the season ended. So what happened? He went to the Reese's Senior Bowl, and that week he impressed. If I remember correctly, I think Jake Shavink said, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I may have misunderstood him. I think he said the GPS tracker had him as the fastest cornerback at the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
So now keep in mind, guys, there are no GMs, there are no coaches, that nobody has come out and said, man, yeah, we think Max Melton is a top 100 pick. No one has said that. It's the media is looking at all the data that's being collected and going, yeah, I think he's going to go higher. I think he's going to go higher. Now, there may be some guys that say we really like Max Melton. We know it's Lions season 2. That could be a smokescreen. They could legit lock him. But the point I'm trying to get at is the consensus draft board here, right? Consensus, what am I trying to think? Big board. It's all compiled from people in the media, right? Yeah. So it's not like these are current GMs that are putting this information in. That's why the early grades are important to me, because before everyone can fall in with all the athletic scores and all that stuff, they are forced to go off of the tape, what happened during the college football season. And that's why I think he may be a little lower than some are saying. And again, when it comes to people are saying now he may be drafted in the second round, why are they thinking that, Tim? Why could they possibly be thinking, okay, Max Melton is going to be taken in the second round? Did a GM tell them that? If they did, there's no GM going to let people know what prospects they actually like. It just doesn't work like that, you know? So, and again, I think Max could be a great pro. I hope he does. this board here isn't my personal opinion. Hey, I went and watched Max Melton, and here's where I think he ranks. This is how I compile the information to try to remove all the craziness that happens once the combine stuff starts, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where he goes, though.
Could I put something out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't remember who exactly it was, but there was multiple analysts that I've heard say that, hey, we slept on Bo Melton in the draft. We're not going to make the same mistake with his brother.
There you go.
Is there maybe an overcorrection that we're looking at here that, like, in Bo Melton, what did he grade out in the 80 or something like that? He was the, I think the best graded PFF receiver that we had last year. So I think that people maybe are looking at that and thinking like, hey, we slept on Bo. We shouldn't do that. Bo and them have been going against each other since they were little kids. If Bo's that good, maybe it means Max is that good. And maybe he gets a couple of rounds up higher than his brother Bo did just because of the fact that, like they said, they slept on him. So
it could be, man. And some people roll their eyes when they hear that. Oh, just because they're brothers, it means they're similar. I mean, that has happened before in the league, right? Let me mention two names to see if you guys have heard of them. TJ and JJ Watt. Anybody ever heard of those two guys? Right? There's two brothers, similar situation. There's another set of twin brothers, obviously, Rondé and Tiki, both excellent pros, right? So go ahead, Jacob. What were you gonna say, Bo?
Saying the Bosa brothers, how you leave those out?
Yeah. Oh yeah, another one, man. I mean, that's two absolute studs, man. Nick Bosa, dude, he is a monster, man.
The Diaz brothers.
He's the only. Yeah, he's the
Kelsey brothers.
That's another one, man.
That is true.
Yeah. I love Jason Kelsey. Travis Kelsey just makes me cringe most of the time. But, yeah. Anyway, he made me cringe long before he got in the limelight with his dating life. He made me cringe when he come out of the tunnel shaking his rear end yeah, never mind. Doug in the chat, but the St. Browns are different. That's very true, Doug. Very
Equanimous. Remember that?
Yeah, we got the wrong one. And you guys know I'm a big Notre Dame Irish man, right? When they drafted EQ, I was fist pumping. About 2 years in, I'm going, I got to remove all this bias with my favorite colleges because this is bad. It was real bad. Some people thought a little change of scenery, he would come alive because, he is a physical specimen. What is he, like 6'5", 4'4", 40, 4'5", 40? But it just didn't pan out. Magic in the chat says the Hanson brothers from Slapshot. There you go. Tim Spangler says, how about the McCaffreys?
Hey, I see us drafting Luke McCaffrey in one of those late rounds. I'm calling my shot right now.
We're going to find out, aren't we? Let's see if I can find Luke on my board here. First of all, let's start with the consensus big board since it's up. Let's see if we can find Luke. Just see where he's currently. He's a wide receiver, right, guys?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, ish. Luke McCaffrey is currently sitting in the 129 spot. He peaked at 106. He recently rose 3 spots for whatever reason. He must have. They said he takes his own trash to the dump and he jumped up 3 spots. It's funny how that works. Right. Let's see if I can. You guys talk for a minute. I'll see if I can find Luke here on my board.
Where are you taking him, Jacob? What are you thinking?
So I'm taking him in the 4th if he slips. I'm taking him in the 4th or the 5th if he slips. And just because, like Goody talked about, this is arguably one of the best top heavy wide receiver drafts in recent history. Like, I've heard people talking about how Rome would be number 1 by far in most drafts. People are talking about how Malik Neighbors would be by far number 1 in most drafts. And obviously we got Marvin Harrison Jr., but there's a few other guys there. Like Malik Washington was another guy. If you look at the way he graded out, freaking amazing. Like Johnny Wilson, freaking amazing. Roman, a lot of dudes right here. So I think that Goot is so in love with wide receivers that I just don't think the guy is going to be able to withhold himself. I mean, when's the last time we carried 7 wide receivers going into a season? I don't know, but I could see it happening.
Heck yeah. I found him. He's in the 144 spot on my board. Yeah. So, and, for those that are kind of wondering, okay, how did he end up there? He was the 113th graded wide receiver in 2022 with a 77.0. That's a solid grade, in 2022. In 2023, he was the 58th highest graded wide receiver at an 80.1. All right. When I took the data down, he was 159 on the consensus big board back in January. So you could kind of see how he's risen a little bit right here of lately. If you look at the consensus big board again, he's currently at 129. He actually peaked at 106. He's currently at 129. The 33rd team has him at 185. So when I balance all that out, he tested really well, got the maximum bonus for me with a 9+ RAS. Last I checked, I got to do a final run through of those. That's how he ends up in the 144 spot. Pretty wild that he is, I got him at 144 and I got Max Melton at 175.
It gives me a question for Jacob. So let's say Max falls to the 4th. You taking Luke McCaffrey? You taking Max Melton?
Oh, dude, don't do that.
Don't do that.
I would have to see. I know it's a cop-out answer, but I'd have to see how the board has fallen previously. So, like, I want to know if there's other wide receivers out there. I want to know if there's other cornerbacks. If so, who? And that's a total cop-out answer.
I'm just laughing because there's people going, "What the hell are we talking about wide receivers for?" So, but
there we go.
Luke Melton.
Love it. Absolutely.
Did you see this too from Deadfish?
Go ahead, read it.
I said they redid last year's draft recently, first 2 rounds, and the Packers had 6 second-round picks, and that was all based off their rookie season as Deadfish.
Let's go, dude.
That's crazy. That may be the best draft of last year. I'd have to look at other teams, but oof.
That is consistency right there, dude. That is just you're taking those low floor, those guys that you go, okay, it's going to be a hard no of them potentially being a bust. When you get that many that grade out to be a second-round talent when you redraft, what they mean is redraft guys like, where would these players be taken again? You got a ton of people in the later rounds that jumped up in the second round, man. Goody was in his bag. I remember showing him in the draft room last year too, and sometimes that stuff looks kind of fake, but the video I remember seeing of him last year, he was at his desk, he was doing something on a computer or something, and he just looked back and grinned at whoever's talking. He just looked like he was locked in. Rather than standing up, walking around, shaking hands, kissing babies, my man was locked into the draft. You could tell it was just he was in his bag, man. I hope he is this year too, dude. Golly. Let's see what else we got here. Was there anything else I wanted to hit on specifically? You guys keep working the chat there if you got one you want to read. We got DJ sleepers for the most part in. No, we didn't. We got through one. God almighty. We're over here looking at wide receivers and where Luke McCaffrey ranks.
Oh, we're going to give him some.
Rightfully so, Tim. God,
we all have ADD to the point where we got that done. Nope, we got 1/5 through the way through.
We may take this wide receiver in the 6th round and off topic.
So who in the hell is Mel Kiper in a way?
Let me just read this list off real quick. And I'm not familiar enough to know their first names, but maybe we can figure it out together here. I've still got the board pulled up behind it. I know we got Max Melton as one of his sleepers outside of the top 50. Dominique Hampton, safety out of Washington. Now, when I went to look him up, Dominique Hampton, let's see, is in the 219 spot currently. So, yeah, Chris in the chat. Wait a minute, you're running this show? Hello. No doubt.
Who?
So Dominique Hampton is currently sitting on the consensus big board at 219. The fact that he mentions him outside the top 50, I can't wait for DJ's top 150 to drop. That's one of the last elements to my draft board too. That would suggest he's within the top 100, I would imagine. So just keep that name in mind. Dominique Hampton, safety out of Washington. Next, you've got Kamara, edge defender. Do you know his first name, Jacob?
Mohammed
Kamara. Okay, got him. Yes, so he's out of Colorado State, edge defender. He's currently sitting in the 121 spot, but he peaked at 66. So I don't know what he did. I don't know what he did to piss people off after the season, but he dropped significantly there, right?
Yeah, I think it's all about his size. He, like Doug Pointer just said here, M. Kamara is a smaller edge, but the numbers, his stats are insane. I mean, he played for a little bit of a smaller school, but it's one of those guys where it's like, man, he ate. I mean, he just feasted on these guys. I think he's only like 6'1", though, so that's where it might be. That's probably why he's fallen.
Gotcha. Let me see where he falls on my board. Kamara from Colorado State, right? And he's an edge defender. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me just double check here real quick. I know I should be able to find him easy. He'll be lit up in the green because of the position of importance. Do I not have him on my board? What the hit me with that Vince Lombardi. What's going on out here, man? Where is he at on my board? I feel like he should be high. I think I've seen him before, man. Thank you, Coach. I'm trying, Coach. I'm trying.
I'm tired, Linda.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm hurting, Linda. I'm hurting real bad. I don't know, man. Do I have him listed under another position? I may not have him color coded too. That might be why I can't find him. I will put that on my list of things to do today because I want to see exactly where he hits, man. Oh, here he is, 119. I got him at 119. So they've got him at 121, right around where I've got him. So I've got him at 119. But Daniel Jeremiah mentioned him here outside the top 50. He may be inside the top 100. I kind of feel, don't you guys feel like these players would be in the top 100 if he was going to mention outside the top 50, or am I reading too much into that, you think?
I think that's right. I mean, I would say the only one that I would argue would be the tight end. I think it's Taylor McLaughlin.
Yep.
He's, like I said, maybe a 6th or 7th round projected. That Marshawn Lloyd, though, dude, he is sneaking up people's draft boards real quick.
There he is, 105. He actually peaked at 51. So something happened where he dropped significantly, and now it feels like he's kind of rose back up here lately. He's in the 105 spot. I think I've got him significantly lower on my board. We're out of time, so I won't try to run him down. But I just wanted to kind of tie these together when it comes to the consensus big board. Let's see who else is on this list. We've got McLaughlin, the tight end you were referring to, Jacob. Let's see if we can find him on the consensus big board. He is currently sitting at 216, and he peaked at 189. So I have a hard time believing he falls into that top 100, right?
He's a big body, though. He's like 6'6", good, decent route runner. He's a good blocker as well. So I could see them definitely taking a late round pick on him.
Got it. And then the last one's from Virginia. That's Malik Washington, wide receiver from Virginia. And again, he said these are all super competitive dudes. So they kind of got that dog in them, if you will. Malik Washington's currently sitting at 110. He peaked at 63. So this is the time to get this information in. And again, don't get caught up in all of the mock news, all of the consensus big board. Find one or two, maybe three people that you really trust that's been in the draft rooms and go, all right, I'm going to use their information as we come down the stretch here. So, yeah.
Is there
anything
go ahead, quick scroll up at this wide receiver list? Because I'm looking at this, like we talked about, this is a heavy wide receiver list. I mean, really, I've had people talk to me about how Xavier Leggette's the best wide receiver in this draft. Troy Franklin's the best. Keon Coleman. I've had people say that Ladd McConkey's the next freaking Wes Welker kind of guy. Adonai Mitchell's apparently one of the best receivers ever. Xavier Worthy's runs a freaking 4.2. Malik Neighbor. Like, this is insane that you can go down about 10 to 15 wide receivers and people still have an argument that they could be in the first round, which is crazy.
His receiving is tough.
It is, bro. So according to the consensus big board, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 receivers that are going to be drafted in the first round, both their mock and where they sit on their consensus big board. That's good news for the Packers. You've got what seems to be now 4 quarterbacks, at least 4, possibly 5, maybe 6 quarterbacks that could be taken in the first round. People are going, you've lost your mind, Clayton. Look at this. Just hear me out here for just a second. Remember what we said about they're willing to reach on a quarterback, right? Caleb Williams, obviously, first-round pick. Drake May, first-round pick. Jaden Daniels, first-round pick. J.J. McCarthy now, I think it's a slam dunk. He's going to be a first-round pick. And that's based off of what Daniel Jeremiah said. Daniel Jeremiah said, this isn't smoke and mirrors. J.J. McCarthy is he could potentially be the 3rd quarterback taken off the board. That's how high his stock is right now. People are going, well, he doesn't really wow you. They ran the ball a lot, this and that. He played under center a ton, and he's one of those guys that he is going to be able to manage. I'll tell you who he sounds like, and this isn't a positive in my opinion, but it's exactly how they described Mac Jones the year Mac came out. It was like he's that type of quarterback. Now, Mac is a little quirky. He's trying to twist people's ankles off and, screaming and crying when he barely hurt his ankle, came back in the second half. There's a lot of stuff there that kind of throws some red flags on Mac Jones now. But J.J. McCarthy kind of fits that same mold to me. He plays on time. He plays within rhythm if you got the right system around him. And when I mean system, like a legit pro-style under center, play action, pass top system, a McVay, a Shanahan, a LaFleur style system, he's going to be able to excel in that, right? So there's 4 in the first round. Now it comes down to Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. Packer fans everywhere. And they, by the way, they got Bo Nix projected to go 12 to Denver. I'm going to talk a little bit about him and tell you why I think that's huge. All Packer fans who are hearing my voice right now, we're wanting all positive news for Michael Penix Jr. to go in the first round. Now, if I understood correctly, he is a pocket passing quarterback, but he ran a 4.40 the other day at his pro day. Like, think about that. Now, immediately people, I don't care what he runs. He's a pocket quarterback. Guys, he's had 2 ACL surgeries. You know how huge that 40-yard dash is for him? That teams are looking up and going, oh, there ain't nothing wrong with those knees. They're as healthy as they've ever been, right? So I could see him create. He peaked at 5 at one point. So if you get those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks that go, and then like Jacob pointed out, we get 5 wide receivers go before the Packers pick, you're talking about 11 players that the Packers there are nowhere near a position of need, right? That's absolutely huge. You throw in Brock Bowers too, who will definitely be gone. Now you're up to 12 players. Packers are going to have, I think they're going to have a great choice at 25 if they don't decide to trade up like we talked about. I'm team trade back. I got you. But man, if one of these, like if the Packers, if their horizontal board doesn't look like the 33rd teams, and one of these players that we got in the 6.8 range, according to the 33rd team, ends up being a 7+ for the Packers, and they get within striking range to trade up and get them, you might see them get what they believe is an elite talent at 25, just because you're expecting 11, 12, maybe 13 players at positions of need going. So, yeah, it could be 8 offensive tackles taken in the first round, SDM 40 says. So, according to the 33rd team, you've got Joe Alt, Latham, Fashanu, Guyton, Mims, Sua Mataya, Fisher, Paul, Amagaji, and Rouse, all within the 6.5 range. That right there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 players that could be borderline first-round picks at the tackle position there too. Let's take one more glance at the 33rd team tackle just to kind of see what they're saying. Yeah, they're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 offensive tackles. Yep, going in the first round, according to the mocks here on the consensus big board. Now, what I was going to say about Bo Nix, they had Bo Nix. They being Greg Cosell and Doug Ferrara had Bo Nix on their X's and O's podcast. If you just search Greg Cosell podcast, it'll lead you to that podcast. Go listen to Bo Nix talk ball with Greg Cosell and Doug Ferrara. Your mind will be blown. He's talking about reading the boundary safety and the SAM pre-snap. They're telling you everything they're doing by just reading the boundary safety, short side of the field safety, and then the strong side of the formation linebacker. He's talking about working high to low with pro concepts. He's talking about how he had complete control over the offense, changing and setting the protection. He could change the play at any point. This dude sounds like a cerebral type quarterback, this dude being Bo Nix. I think you're going to see him creep up. That number 12, if you'd asked me a month ago, Tim, about Denver taking him at 12, I'd have went, I don't know about that. After hearing him talk on that pod, I was like, this dude, I challenge everyone. Go listen to a Bo Nix or a Jaden Daniels, then go listen to Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has all the talent in the world. But when you compare them and kind of how their mind fires and computes as far as, being able to diagnose plays and just understand what the offense is trying to do, Caleb Williams is starting to scream bust to me. And again, it's the perfect example. And I don't care if he carries a purse. I don't care if he wears a dress. I could care less about that stuff. I'm talking about between the ears. How does this guy present himself as a leader, as a football player? And I would just love to hear him talk ball. Now, it sounds like he impressed at the interviews. So maybe that's all getting blown out of proportion. But I've still got Caleb Williams hands down as the best quarterback in this draft. I've got a 3.7 on him, and that'll probably change. Now, I will say this, Greg Cosell wasn't very big on him. The way Greg Cosell said it too, and this is how Greg Cosell operates, and we'll wrap this thing up. He doesn't say, I don't like Caleb Williams, right? He's not here to beat people. He knows how strong his words are, and he doesn't want to drive people's stock down. He just tries to talk about what they do good and move on. When he talked about Caleb Williams, he said, all I can say is this. People that I trust around the league absolutely love his arm talent. They love it. And that was it. And I was going, Now, he would go on to talk about like who was one of Jaden Daniels, I think it was. He was talking about Jaden Daniels, and it was like, this kid plays with anticipation. He plays on time. He plays with rhythm. He has the mobility to get off if he needs to, but he's willing to stay in the pocket. And then you rewind the pod back and go to Caleb Williams, and it was people I trust around the league love his arm talent. All right. Yeah. That sounded like the old dating line you'd get, boys, when you'd never see the girl again and she'd say, it's not you, it's me, right? That's what it kind of felt like there. I ain't gonna lie. So there you go. Jacob, you got anything else as we wrap up?
Just a random little note. Yesterday I had a job interview and it went great. And I had actually talked with one of the gentlemen and he goes, like, what are your hobbies or whatever? And I said, well, I really love the Packers. I do have, part of a Packers podcast or whatever. And he goes, no way. And the guy's a diehard Bears fan, right? But he goes on to tell me that he grew up in Ashland, Wisconsin, and that somehow his father ended up becoming really good friends with Ray Nitschke towards the end of Ray Nitschke's life, to the point where Ray Nitschke would come and watch his football games, and he would sit around and tell stories about, and both of these guys are diehard Bear fans, right? So just having the fact that they had Ray Nitschke in his life all the time, like he showed me some pictures of them growing up together, and he said that basically whatever happened with Ray right before he died, something happened in Florida, I believe he said, like where he ended up actually dying. But he was on his way to go meet this gentleman and his father to go to dinner that day when he died. And it was like just one of those weird interactions where I was like, man,
that's
I guess there goes that job. No, he was totally cool, man. He was all about it. He's like, I'm gonna download the podcast. He goes, I respect. He went in so hard. He's like, people talk about the Packers and Vikings being the rivalry. He goes, that's not crap. He goes, it's all Packers Bears, and that's all it'll ever be. I was like, dude, yeah.
I love it. I love that he's hanging on to that too. Like he wants it to still be a rivalry, right? I think we all do. I think it was great when both teams are good, man. That rivalry is top notch.
Oh, it's still a rivalry.
Yeah.
I mean, right, Jacob? I mean, we got to let them know.
The Bears still suck.
There goes Jacob's job offer right there. He downloaded the podcast. I love it. Absolutely love it. Tim, you got anything else, Bo?
No, I just glad I woke up this morning. This was awesome, guys.
Me too, my man. Me too. All right, we're going to get out of here. We covered a lot more info than I thought we would, so this was a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody in the chat. You guys and gals are absolutely awesome. Had a bunch of people here on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you all for hanging out with us. If you're on Twitter and you want a little bit easier interface, you can hop over to YouTube or Rumble. Rumble's surprisingly really, really nice as far as the interface goes there too. And want to give a special shout out to our newest Patreon members here. We have got, like I said, Trevor Anderson, Doug Holman. Appreciate you, buddy. We got Allison Tuckwab as well. Thank you all for joining the Patreon PTA posse. We're going to be doing some giveaways out of there. And also we're going to be doing a lot of cool like polls and stuff too. We want to make sure that we're including those who are kind of supporting the channel in that regard and maximizing your all's feedback. So we may do like a current poll where we'll ask you a question on the poll and kind of include the PTA posse's Patreon group there. So again, if you are interested in signing up for our Patreon group, you just click on the link in the description of this video. You'll see a link for Patreon, or you can just search on Patreon for Packer Fan Total Access. And we appreciate everybody supporting the show. So that being said, we're out of here. We'll be back tonight for PTA Live. I'm probably going to do 2 shows tomorrow too, if I can break away from the family for just about an hour each time. So I may be flying solo. I'm sure everybody's got plans, but you guys are welcome to join on that too. So everybody have a great day. Be safe out there. Enjoy the weather. Hopefully it's pretty where you guys and gals are. Magic, you hit it on the head. Said Happy Easter, everyone. Tim scolded me for the picture of the Pope here leading things off, but hey, you never know when things are going to get off the rails with this show. So I always blame Omer when stuff like that happens. All right. I'm still surprised Omer hasn't gotten one of these.
Roadhouse.
Omer has got immunity, right? I think that is that not no. What is that? Is that the right word, Jacob? Where someone can't be can't be banned.
Yeah. Diplomatic immunity.
There you go. He's locked in for life. Got that lifetime membership. So we're here for the rants from Omer. Everybody shows up for that. So. All right, we'll see you guys later. Have a great day. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of it. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.